Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into data loss prevention.
DLP for short.
Right, DLP. It's crazy how much data we create every single day.
It really is.
From like online shopping to those files we're always working on at work.
Oh yeah, it's like a giant digital trail we leave behind.
Exactly, a digital fingerprint. And that's where DLP comes in, right?
Yeah, you could say that. It's like a shield, protecting all that sensitive information.
Keeping it safe from prying eyes, those leaks, or even theft.
Exactly. Making sure things stay private.
And with all those data breaches happening, it feels like we need that protection more than ever.
Oh, absolutely. It's like having a good lock in your door, but for your data.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've got a whole bunch of research articles, some news stories, and even a few personal stories.
Oh, wow. Some firsthand accounts.
Yeah, about data security and stuff.
Yeah.
So our mission, if you will, is to figure out how DLP works, why it even matters.
And what's coming next for this whole data protection thing.
Right, because let's be real, no one wants their personal info out there for everyone to see.
Or their company's secrets, for that matter.
Definitely not. And our sources, they really highlight why DLP is so important these days, especially when it comes to privacy.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Hmm.
Like with those GDPR rules, companies have to, legally protect personal data.
So it's not just a good idea, it's the law.
Exactly. And DLP helps them follow those rules.
Keeps them out of trouble.
And away from those big fines, too, yeah.
Ouch, yeah. But it's not only about personal stuff, right? One article talked about how bad data leaks can be for a company.
Oh, yeah, reputation, finances, the whole 9 yards.
Talk about a PR nightmare.
Huge. Imagine what happens to a company's stock after a big breach.
Or even how employees feel, like if their information gets out.
Exactly. It can be tough to bounce back from that.
Definitely. It makes me think, are some industries, more vulnerable than others?
Oh, for sure. Like healthcare and finance, they deal with really sensitive stuff.
All those medical records and transactions?
Yeah, so they rely on DLP heavily.
Makes sense. The stakes are high.
Super high. One article even mentioned this website, bluefinchesbd.com.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a one-stop shop for DLP info.
I'll have to check that out.
Definitely should. But how does this whole DLP thing actually work? Is it like a magic algorithm or something?
Kind of. It's a system that's constantly watching your communication channels.
Emails, messages, everything.
Yeah. File transfers, cloud stuff, even printing.
It's like a digital security guard.
That's a good way to put it. It's guarding your data, but instead of a building.
Right, it's making sure those social security numbers, credit card info.
Medical records, company secrets, all that stays put.
So it knows what to look for.
It does. And it doesn't just sit there. It's always monitoring those channels.
Like actually reading the stuff.
Scanning it, yeah. Looking for anything that matches the sensitive data.
And if it finds something fishy,
That's when the action happens.
action, what kind of action does it, sound an alarm?
It can. But it's more than that. It can block a transfer, send alerts,
Wow, that's intense.
even quarantine the data to stop it from leaking.
We actually have a diagram in our sources showing how DLP stops leaks before they happen.
Oh, that's cool. Like a visual play-by-play?
It really is. So it's not just about cleaning up after a mess, it's preventing the mess altogether.
Exactly. Proactive, not reactive. And to do all this, DLP has some pretty amazing features built in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, one big one is data classification. Think of it like labeling your data,
Labeling, like putting a sticky note on each file.
kind of. It's digitally tagging what's sensitive and what's not.
So it knows what needs extra protection.
Exactly. Makes things way easier to track and manage.
Smart. So once the data is tagged, then what?
Then the real-time monitoring kicks in. Remember that security guard we were talking about?
Always watching?
Yep. It's constantly checking user and system activity, looking for anything suspicious.
Like if someone tries to email a customer list to their personal account.
Exactly. That would raise a huge red flag, and the system could block it right there.
Phew, that's a relief. It's like a safety net for your data.
You got it. And it doesn't stop at email. It protects all those communication channels.
Even those messaging apps and file sharing sites?
All of them. No sneaky data leaks allowed.
No slipping through the cracks.
Nope. And it even covers those old school methods like using USB drives.
Wait, so it can stop me from copying files to a USB drive?
If those files have sensitive data and you're not supposed to move them, then yes.
Wow, it's like a digital bouncer.
Keeping the wrong data out of the wrong hands.
I like it. So what else? What other features does this digital bouncer have?
Well, there's also reporting and analysis. This is where DLP gets really smart.
Smart. How so?
It basically becomes a detective generating detailed reports on data activity.
So it's like a security log, But for data.
That's it. It tracks everything so you can see what's happening and spot any weaknesses.
And learn from any close calls, right?
Exactly. It's all about constantly improving your data security posture.
All of this is super impressive. But I gotta ask, what's the real payoff? Why should companies or even individuals care about DLP?
That's a great question. The biggest benefit is, obviously, reducing data leaks. DLP stops those costly and embarrassing incidents from happening in the first place.
So it protects your reputation and your bottom line.
Exactly. And remember those compliance rules we talked about. DLP helps companies stay on the right side of the law.
Especially in those heavily regulated industries.
Yep. Healthcare, finance, they can breathe a sigh of relief.
No legal headaches, that's a plus. But what about everyday people? How does DLP benefit them?
Well, it builds trust. When you know a company takes data security seriously, you feel better about sharing your information with them.
Like, hey, they've got my back.
Exactly. It's all about responsible data stewardship.
I like it. But it can't be all sunshine and roses, right? What about the downsides? What are the challenges with DLP?
They're right. There are some hurdles. One of the biggest is false positives.
False positives. You mean when the system freaks out over nothing?
Kind of. It flags something as a threat when it's actually harmless.
Or like a smoke detector going off because you burnt toast.
Exactly. And it can be a real pain for administrators.
Especially if it happens all the time.
It can be. Tuning the system to reduce those false positives is a constant battle.
So it's not a set it and forget it solution.
Not at all. It needs constant attention and tweaking.
I see. What else makes DLP tricky?
Well, it can get pretty complex, especially for companies with complicated IT systems.
You need someone who really knows what they're doing.
Oh yeah, a DLP expert. And then, of course, there's the cost.
Ah, yes. The budget monster always seems to show up.
It's a factor. Exactly. They offer more flexibility, and they're more affordable.
So even smaller companies can get in on the action.
Exactly. It's making DLP more accessible to everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about the present state of DLP, but now I'm curious, what's next? What's the future hold for all of this?
That's what gets me really excited. The future of DLP is tied to all these cool advancements we're seeing in technology, like AI, for example.
AI. So are we talking robots protecting our data now?
Not robots exactly, but close. AI and machine learning are being used to make DLP smarter.
Smarter. In what way?
Well, imagine a system that learns from past mistakes, spots patterns, and predicts threats before they even happen.
Whoa, that's next level.
It is. AI can tell the difference between normal activity and real threats, way better than those old rule-based systems.
So no more annoying false alarms.
Well, hopefully way fewer. That's the goal, at least.
I like those odds. What else is in store for DLP?
Well, those cloud-based solutions, DLP, they're going to be huge. They give you better control no matter where your data lives.
It's like having a global security system, keeping an eye on everything.
You got it. Especially with companies having data in so many different places these days.
So the future of DLP is about being smarter, faster, and more connected.
Exactly. It's all about using these new technologies to create a more proactive and intelligent approach to security.
Okay, we've covered a lot, from the nuts and bolts of DLP to the mind-blowing future stuff.
It's been a wild ride.
It really has. But before we get lost in the future, I'm wondering how this all plays out in the real world.
Ah, yes. The practical side of things. That's a question we'll tackle head-on in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back with more insights and real-world examples of DLP in action,
Welcome back to the deep dive.
where we're picking up right where we left off, exploring the world of data loss prevention.
We covered a lot of ground last time, didn't we?
We did. From those basic DLP building blocks to those crazy future advancements with AI.
It's mind-boggling how AI is changing the data security game.
Making DLP smarter, more proactive, all that jazz.
And those cloud-based solutions, DLPass.
Like having a security guard who can be everywhere at once.
Exactly. Keeping an eye on all that data, no matter where it is.
But before we get too lost in the cloud, I've got a question that's been bugging me.
Okay, hit me with it.
All this talk about DLP sounds amazing in theory, but how's it actually being used out in the real world?
The practical side of things.
Mm.
Good question. Let's start with healthcare, a field where data privacy is super important.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're dealing with some of the most sensitive information out there.
Patient medical records, treatment histories, all that confidential stuff.
Exactly. So how does DLP fit into that world?
Well, hospitals and clinics, they use DLP to make sure all that information stays locked down.
So it's like a digital HIPAA enforcer, making sure they're following all the rules?
You could say that. It helps them avoid those nasty data breaches and keeps them compliant.
Makes sense. What about other industries? Where else is DLP making a big difference?
Financial institutions are another big one. They use DLP to protect all those juicy financial details that hackers love.
Credit card numbers, bank account info, all that good stuff.
Exactly. DLP helps prevent identity theft and financial fraud.
So it's like having an extra layer of security for your money.
It's one way to think about it.
Mm.
And then there's the business world, where intellectual property is king.
Trade secrets, product designs, all those things that give companies their edge.
Exactly. DLP helps safeguard that critical information, keeping it out of the wrong hands.
So it's like a digital vault for a company's crown jewels.
I like that analogy. It helps them stay competitive and protect their innovations.
These examples are really helpful, seeing how DLP is used in different ways.
And those are just a few. It's also used in government, education, nonprofits, really anywhere sensitive data needs protection.
So it's like a universal language of data security.
You could say that, but like any powerful tool, it can be misused.
Oh, that sounds a bit ominous. What do you mean?
Well, while DLP is mainly used for good, it's important to remember it can be used in ways that raise ethical questions.
Like what? Can you give us an example?
Imagine a company using DLP to monitor their employees' every move, even personal stuff.
Whoa, that sounds like a major invasion of privacy.
Exactly. It's a slippery slope, and it raises concerns about employee rights.
So even though DLP is great for protection, it has to be used responsibly.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance between security and individual freedom.
Right, that makes sense. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about something a bit more technical.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm curious about the different types of DLP solutions out there. Is it a one-size-fits-all situation, or are there different options?
It's definitely not one size fits all. There are a few different types of DLP solutions, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, break it down for me. What are the main players?
Well, one way to categorize them is by where they operate. You've got network DLP, endpoint DLP, and storage DLP.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's network DLP all about?
Network DLP, it's all about monitoring and controlling data as it moves around your network. It inspects data packets, looking for sensitive info that shouldn't be leaving the building.
So it's like a security checkpoint for your data.
Exactly. If it spots something suspicious, it can block it, send alerts, even quarantine the data.
Makes sense. What about endpoint DLP? What's its focus?
Endpoint DLP is all about protecting data at the device level. Laptops, desktops, smartphones, all of them.
So it's like having a personal bodyguard for each device, preventing leaks at the source.
You got it. It stops those leaks from happening through email, file sharing, even printing.
And last but not least, we've got storage DLP. What's its specialty?
Storage DLP, it's all about protecting data that's at rest. Data sitting in the databases, file servers, cloud storage, all those places.
So it's like a security system for your data warehouses.
Exactly. It helps discover sensitive data, control who has access, and prevent any unauthorized snooping. They do. They cover all the bases: data in motion, data in use, and data at rest.
Like a three-pronged attack on data leakage?
Love it.
Huh.
But beyond these three, there are other ways to classify DLP solutions.
Oh, tell me more. I'm all about going deeper.
Well, some solutions are rule-based, meaning they use preset rules to spot sensitive data.
Okay, so they're like strict rule followers.
Exactly. While others use more advanced techniques like machine learning to detect those tricky anomalies.
So they're more like detectives looking for clues and patterns.
That's a great way to put it. The right solution really depends on the organization's needs.
Their budget, their technical skills, all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's about finding the right fit.
And maybe getting some expert advice along the way.
Definitely. Having the right guidance can make a world of difference.
Okay, so we've explored the types of DLP solutions. It's a whole landscape out there.
It is. But at the end of the day, DLP is about more than just technology.
What do you mean?
Well, it's only as effective as the people who are using it. It takes a combination of technical know-how, human judgment, and a real commitment to protecting data.
So it's not just about having the right tools, it's about using them wisely.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of data security within an organization.
So everyone understands the importance of DLP and how to handle data responsibly.
Exactly. When everyone's on the same page, it makes a huge difference.
It's like building a human firewall where everyone's looking out for each other.
That's a great way to put it. And it's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable reporting potential problems.
Without being afraid to speak up.
Exactly. That's when DLP becomes truly effective. It's not just a technology. It's a shared responsibility.
A team effort to protect what matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive.
Real-world examples, different types of solutions, the human side of DLP.
It's clear that DLP isn't just some abstract concept. It's something that affects all of us.
Our personal privacy, our finances, the companies we work for.
And as technology keeps evolving, so will the threats to our data.
Which means DLP is going to be even more important going forward.
Absolutely. It's an essential tool in the fight for data security.
And the good news is, it's constantly adapting to meet those challenges.
It's a fascinating field, always evolving. Speaking of adapting, we've got some practical tips for implementing and managing DLP solutions coming up in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll also leave you with some food for thought about the future of data security in this crazy connected world of ours. Stay tuned, everyone. The grand finale is coming up next. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored this crazy world of data loss prevention.
We've seen how it works, why it matters.
And even got a glimpse into what the future holds.
Right, AI-powered DLP, cloud solutions, all that exciting stuff.
Exactly. But now it's time to get practical.
Time for some actionable advice.
Let's equip our listeners with the knowledge they need to implement and manage DLP effectively.
Because knowing about DLP and actually using it, those are two different things.
Totally, it's like having a fancy new car.
But not knowing how to drive it.
Exactly. So where do we start? What's the first step on this DLP journey?
Well, before you hit the gas, you got to have a destination in mind.
So define your goals first.
Exactly. Figure out what you're trying to protect, where is it, who can access it.
It's like knowing your data inside and out.
Like knowing your best friend.
Yeah, I like that. So once you know your data, then what?
Then you got to assess your risks. What are the biggest threats? What happens if there's a breach?
So it's like a data risk assessment.
You got it. Weighing the potential costs against the investment in DLP.
Makes sense. We've got our goals, we've assessed the risks. What's next on our DLP roadmap?
Time to choose your ride. Pick the right DLP solution for your needs.
We talked about the different types, network, endpoint, storage.
Like those digital guardians.
But how do you know which one is the right fit?
Well, you got to consider things like your budget, your technical expertise.
Right, the complexity of your IT systems.
Exactly. It's about finding a solution that's not too big, not too small, just right or red.
Like Goldilocks and the DLP solutions.
I love it. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, those DLP experts can really guide you in the right direction.
They've been there, done that. All right, so we've chosen our solution. What's next?
Time to put it all together right. Implement the thing.
That's it. Configure it, set your policies, get those monitoring systems up and running.
Turning those blueprints into a real working security system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But remember, implementation isn't a one-time thing.
Oh. So it's not like setting it and forgetting it.
Definitely not. It's an ongoing process, constantly fine-tuning and adjusting.
So it's more like building a house.
You start with a foundation.
Then you add the walls, the roof.
And you're always making tweaks along the way, fixing leaks, adding on.
And keeping an eye out for those pesky termites.
Exactly. In the DLP world, those termites are things like false positives, configuration errors, and new threats popping up.
So you got to stay vigilant. Continuous monitoring is key.
Absolutely. Always keep an eye on things, make sure it's all working smoothly.
This sounds like a lot of work, to be honest.
It can be, but there are ways to make it easier, more manageable.
Okay, I'm listening. Share those secrets to DLP success.
One big one is automation. A lot of DLP solutions can automate things like data discovery and classification.
So it's like having a little robot helper doing some of the heavy lifting.
That's it. It frees you up to focus on the big picture strategy.
Love that. Any other tips for taming the DLP beast?
Don't forget the human element. Create a culture of data security in your organization.
Get everyone on board with the importance of protecting data.
Exactly. Training, awareness, make it part of your company's DNA.
So it's not just the IT team's responsibility, it's everyone's.
Right. Everyone's a data security champion. And encourage people to report anything suspicious.
Without fear of punishment.
Right. Create a safe space for people to speak up.
That's when DLP really shines, when it's a shared responsibility.
When everyone's working together to protect what matters.
Well said. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from the technical details to the human side of things.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has, and I think our listeners are walking away with a much better understanding of DLP.
How it works, why it's important.
And how they can put it into action to protect their own data.
Because at the end of the day, DLP is about more than just technology.
It's about protecting our privacy, our security, our digital lives.
It's about creating a safer, more trustworthy online world.
And that's something we can all get behind.
Absolutely. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep your data safe out there.